Good morning, guys. It is Friday, January 26, 2024. This is Bathrobe Business. I'm Georgi Oganov. I got my coffee and I got the news. I'm also having lots of technical issues for some reason. This is the second time I'm recording this video. For some reason, I didn't record on the first round. So I'm going to repeat myself to no one because nobody knew I repeated myself in the first place. So PCE, the Personal Consumer Expenditure Report came out today, and it was very positive. As you know, I've been, I don't know if pessimistic is the word, but very hawkish that the Fed is not going to cut interest rates this year. I may be eating my words very soon. So Consumer Expenditure Report came out, and inflation fell to 2.9% year over year. That's a major drop. In November, we were still in 3.4% territory. So in about a month, we're down about 0.5%. That's pretty major, and that is a stimulus to why the Fed should be cutting rates. Now, as you know, I am a strong supporter of high interest rates. I think interest rates should always be high. I think high interest rates keep people honest. I think it keeps Wall Street honest. I think it makes businesses efficient. It keeps zombie companies out of the market. It increases personal savings. I think over time, it does actually help home prices. I think the problem right now is that we have an undersupply, but in normal environments, it does help home prices. So I am a strong supporter of high interest rates. If it was up to me, I'd take the federal funds rate to 7%. But a lot of people are saying that this is going to be the reason that the Fed is going to cut interest rates, and I can't argue with that because the main reason to raise interest rates in the first place was to curb inflation. If inflation is falling, which it seems to be, I think a cut in 2024 is possible. I think it's too early to say that it's going to be in March or it's going to be in June, but I think in the third or fourth quarter, I think it's very possible if this trend continues. Remember, the goal is 2%. We're at 2.9, so we only have 1 percentage point essentially to get there. And once inflation reaches 2.2, 2.4, people are going to say, well, we're practically there. Let's cut the rate. Now, there is also the counter argument that I will make, which I don't think anyone will listen to, but I think they should. Is there a real reason to cut interest rates if everything is humming along just fine? If we get inflation under control and home prices are remaining steady, and home sales are remaining steady, car sales are remaining steady, if the economy is humming along and there's no issues, why would you cut interest rates and risk messing with that formula? You only start cutting interest rates if there's slowdowns, but if everything is going along just fine, why would you cut interest rates to begin with? So if Jerome Powell wants to maintain the high interest rates, which I would hope that he does, remember, again, it strengthens the dollar, it increases our potential for imports, it does a multitude of amazing things. But if he wanted to maintain these high interest rates, he would start pivoting his argument to the fact that the Fed doesn't see a true reason to cut interest rates. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's getting too much pressure from Wall Street. I think he's getting even too much pressure from the Main Street sector. I think people want low interest rates, and I think he's going to cave. He's not Paul Volcker. He doesn't have the spine for it. But if I was him, I would say, hey, everything's going great. We don't see a reason to cut interest rates. The economy is working just fine. We'll see if that happens. Next story is actually a pretty major one. U.S. domestic gross product rose 6.3% in 2023. That's a very impressive number for growth. At the same time, China's only went up 4.6%. That's actually abysmal, especially for China. China, which usually faces massive GDP growth, coming out of COVID especially, had a very, very low gain. And it's very illustrative of how much they're suffering that in the same year, we had 6.3 and they had 4.6. Remember, just their population alone should be impetus enough to get a higher inflation rate, but that is a very bad number. I've been very optimistic on China. I think it's become a trend almost to underestimate China, and I think it shouldn't be underestimated because I think their economy is still going to experience a lot of growth as they're moving into U.S. markets more aggressively than they ever have, as they're moving into service economies in the way they never have, as their economy becomes more modernized. But that number is pretty illustrative of how much they have to gain because remember, they're out of lockdown. They should have seen a massive gain. They're still suffering from those real estate crises. That's not going anywhere for several years, and they've got major stimulus. They've got major stimulus already in place, and that's all they could muster. So that's a pretty bad number for China and a pretty fantastic number for us. Next story is going to kind of undercut my point that I just made a minute ago with inflation and interest rates. So it was anticipated that home prices would not increase this year. That may not be true anymore. As more homes are being bought and sold, remember I reported just a couple days ago that home sales volumes are up. So more homes are being bought and sold than they were in just a month ago. And we're not in the busy season yet. The busy season doesn't usually start until the spring and the summer. But Zillow is estimating that we could see a 3.7% jump in 2024. I think that's believable, seeing as how much movement is happening in the market right now. And again, we're not even entering the real game time season of home sales. Last story is just going to be about Intel. This is a very minor story, but I think it's just illustrative of a major point. So Intel sinks after the first quarter outlook disappoints. So Intel actually technically beat Wall Street estimates. I think they came in about 300 million over what Wall Street estimated. They had like a 15.4 billion in revenue. That's a good number, but the problem is their outlook is not good. And I think that makes sense because we reported this earlier last year that Intel is losing big time across the board to multiple chip manufacturers. First of all, PC sales are down, and that's been a problem for a couple years post-COVID. And Intel is primarily a PC-based market chip. Secondly, they do not have anything with AI. They don't even have anything that comes close. And AI is the future one way or another. NVIDIA is overtaking that market. They're going to be the only name in that market. And so Intel can't compete. At the same time, from a graphics side and from a gaming side, AMD is schooling Intel like no other. Their chips are more efficient, they're more powerful, they're more capable. Every gamer right now is buying AMD processors and not Intel. The only people buying Intel are basic PC users. So Intel is in a very bad position. And I think this is just illustrative of the point that giants can fall and will eventually fall. Years ago, and this isn't that long ago, we're talking 5 or 6 years ago, nobody heard of NVIDIA, nobody heard of AMD. Intel was the only name in chips. If you talk to anyone who was or was not big in the computer PC space and ask them what kind of processor do you want in your computer, everybody would just say Intel. Intel was the only name. They were a household name for computer chips. How often, or processor chips? How often does that happen? And now, 5 or 6 years later, they are almost a laughingstock in the community. And to turn this around takes incredibly strong leadership, incredible cuts and innovation, and that could take at least a decade to implement properly because the changes that they need to make to the company are not easy. And I don't think that the market is going to give them that much leeway to do it. So I feel like they're kind of stuck in the niche that they are in, and all they can do is rely on the ebbs and flows of the PC market. And I think this is a great sign to show if you're not innovating, you can be overtaken very easily. That's it. That's the last story of the day. I usually like to go more in depth on Fridays, but there's just not that much to talk about. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.